Today, our scripture reading comes from the Gospel of Matthew as we read the story of Jesus' baptism. Baptism was not a universal practice among the people of Jesus' day, but occasionally practiced as an act of commitment to a new way of life. So, when John the Baptist came along preaching that it was time for a great turning, it made sense that the baptism be the beginning for people. Commit to God's great turning, be baptized, and then be ready to help God clean up the world. In the lead up to this reading, John is out in the wilderness and people are coming to him, being inspired by him and being baptized by him. His cousin Jesus comes out to see what's going on. Today's reading is from Matthew 3, verses 13 to 17. Then Jesus came from Galilee to John at the Jordan to be baptized by him. John would have prevented him, saying, "I need to be baptized by you, and do you come to me?" But Jesus answered him, "Let it be so now, for it is proper for us in this way to fulfill all righteousness." Then he consented. And when Jesus had been baptized, just as he came up from the water, suddenly the heavens were opened to him, and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and alighting on him. And a voice from heaven said, "This is my Son, the beloved, and with whom I am well pleased." Hear what the Spirit is saying to the church.
Let's join together in prayer. O God of love and justice, peace, we want to be in tune with you, and we want our world to be in tune with your love and your justice and your. So we give you this time and give you the words of my mouth, meditations of our heart. We pray that through the work of your Spirit, you would set our hearts on fire and change our minds. Send us in. Amen. So here we are, the first Sunday after Epiphany, or the second Sunday of Epiphany. Second Sunday of January, and just so soon after we have celebrated the birth of Jesus, just behind us, and in our gospel reading, he's 30 years old. They grow up so fast, don't they? You know? Huh. Jesus is headed down to the Jordan River, where his cousin is receiving people of all kinds, crowds of people who long for life to be different, for the world to be different. Long for a Messiah to come and turn things around. Long for a sense that their life matters, that it means something in a bigger sense. That they're more than just pawns in the hands of powerful people like Herod and Caesar. And so here is Jesus among the throng, normal as can be, just fitting in. But John hesitates to baptize him. This is no normal situation, but Jesus disagrees. No. John, baptize me like everybody else. This is the way to fulfill all righteousness, or to be in right relation. This is the right and proper way to proceed. Business as it ought to be. But then as he's coming out of the water, something particular is experienced. Matthew's gospel uniquely says, "And the heavens opened." All the gospels have some kind of, all the Matthew, Mark, and Luke all have some kind of story of this. Matthew says specifically, the heavens opened, and there was a voice. Spirit rested on him. There was a voice, "This is my beloved, in whom I am well pleased." The beautiful story, full of kind of epiphany light and hope, with the blessing of his Maker so clearly resting upon him. What could possibly go wrong? This is the beginning of a story destined to have a happy ending, right? Well, no, actually. It is a light-filled beginning of a story destined to reveal God's essential character of love, but there are no guarantees of a happy ending or that this will be easy. Only that God will be in it, that God blesses it, and God will never let it go. And that's why we baptize. That's why baptism is our initiation rite, not because it offers us any guarantees of safety or an easy life or success in any kind. But we believe that no matter what happens, the steadfast love of God does rest upon us and upon the hurting world. And we are part of that. And that promise gives us hope and propels us into life. It's been kind of a shaky week. And as I sat down to begin the process of bringing thoughts of God and gospel together on Thursday, I confess that I had more thoughts of Iran and of our Persian neighbors than I had of Jesus and a baptism in the Jordan and the message of blessing that is said to have come on the wings of a dove. How do we speak of blessing and belovedness in a week like this? How do we put things together? How do we attest to what we hold to be true in the depths of our faith, that it is love, not fear, that is our beginning and our ending, and blessing, not curse, that rests upon God's beloved world, and generosity, not self-interest, that must motivate our lives? How do these essential convictions stand up under the battering wave upon wave of news attesting to the power of fear and violence that seems to be just so equally as woven into the fabric of things? We have just come through a season in which over and over again the message that we heard and that we proclaimed is that light is coming into the world, and that the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness is not able to put it out. And this week, the darkness took a pretty strong swing. So, this week I started thinking about blessedness and belovedness. And instead, with all that has happened, I really want to talk about hope. Because I think that hope is what we need to lean into more than anything else in this particular season of Epiphany. I have this signed poster in my office. You might have seen it if you've darkened the door of my office. It's signed by John Green, the author John Green, and it's a quote that my daughter gave to me some years ago. "The world may be broken, but hope is not crazy." No, it is not crazy, and it is the thing that we hold on to more than anything else when the brokenness of the world and of our human predicament displays itself so graphically as it did this week. So hope. Do you remember Václav Havel? Václav Havel was a Czech writer and eventually and social activist and eventually politician. He was instrumental in the dismantling of communism in the 80s and was the first president of the Czech Republic. He a playwright and a brilliant man. He was imprisoned a fair bit during the 70s and 80s because of his writing and because of his speaking. Well, so he knows what it means to not be moving in the direction that you want things to be moving. Václav Havel has said, hope is not the conviction that something will turn out well, but the certainty that something makes sense regardless of how it turns out. Let me read that to you again, okay? It's important. Hope is not the conviction that something will turn out well, but the certainty that something makes sense regardless of how it turns out. So for Christians, hope is based not upon the results or the outcome, but rather the worthiness of the path, that the path makes sense. The rightness of it, the steadfast love of God in the midst of it. That's the hope. It is true that the world is broken, that there is a lot of brokenness. This week, that brokenness came close to us because members of the North Shore community died as a plane was shot down out of the sky. And it's an absolutely terrible thing and sad. This one has come close to us, but other terrible things happen in this flawed and struggling world. This one has come close. And yet, as the Spirit singers just sang, we are seekers of light and bearers of light. And it is tempting to let what happens to the world knock us off our search. But we must not let that happen. We cannot control what others will do. And there is so much in the world that we cannot prevent. But what we can do is insist that in whatever part of the world we do influence, we will declare the universal blessing of God, which rests upon every child of God. And we will light a candle for. We will do that. Not because it will create some incredible outcome, but because it's right. And even if events and disasters snuff it out, we will light it again and again. Not the darkness, but because it's the right thing. We will not let the fear snuff out our compassion, even our own fear. We will not let the hate overwhelm our love. We will refuse despair, but instead choose hope, because the blessing of God does not ever let us go, but rests upon the broken world. There's a beautiful exchange in, I'm going to go back to John Green, a John Green novel that was turned into a movie called The Fault in Our Stars. How many saw the movie or read the book? Okay. There's your assignment. The Fault in Our Stars. You've read excellent. John Green is fantastic, and I would recommend the movie, but I would even more so recommend the book. Two main characters, 16-year-old Hazel and 17-year-old Augustus or Gus, both of whom have terminal cancer. And they meet in a mutual support group, and they become really, really, really close friends as they both face the deep questions that we face as we are nearing our own death. And it's not theoretical for them. The terrible truth is that these two young people will die soon. But their capacity to be real and honest in the midst of this broken situation is incredible, inspiring. So here they are in a conversation, kind of near the end of the book. Out of nowhere, Augustus asked, "Do you believe in an afterlife?" "I think forever is an incorrect concept," says Hazel. He smirked. "You're an incorrect concept." "I know. That's why I'm being taken out of the rotation." "That's not funny," says Augustus. Looking at the street, two girls passed by on a bike, one riding side saddle in the back, above the back wheel. "Come on," says Hazel. That was a joke. The thought of you being removed from the rotation is not funny to me." He said, "Seriously though, afterlife." "No," I said, and then revised. "Well, maybe I won't go so far as no." "You?" "Yes," he said, his voice full of confidence. "Yes, absolutely. I mean, not like a heaven where you ride unicorns, play harps, and live in mansions made of clouds. But yes, I believe in something with a capital S. Always have." "Really?" Hazel asked. I was surprised. I'd always associated belief in heaven with, frankly, a kind of intellectual disengagement. But Gus was not dumb. "Yeah," he said quietly, "I believe in that line from An Imperial Affliction," a book that they had been reading. "The risen sun, too bright for her losing eye." That's God, I think. The rising sun, and the light is too bright, and her eyes are losing, but they aren't lost. I don't believe we return to haunt or comfort the living or anything, but I think something becomes of us. What I love about that exchange is that the promise of something with a capital S is not prescriptive or even concrete, but is there. The sun, too bright for her losing eyes. If we are human, we know what it is to have losing eyes. We know what it is to have limited power. And yet, there is a sun rising that is brighter than our losing eyes. When Jesus was baptized and when he came up out of the water, something with a capital S blessed him and blessed his life. He proceeded to live and work and teach and learn and laugh and be brokenhearted, and ultimately he died terribly and unjustly. But just as ultimately, something became of him. The sun was too bright even for his losing eyes. We can't prevent weeks like this one. We can try, but ultimately, but we can resist despair. We can resist retaliation. We can reach out in compassion. We can believe in heaven even as the lights go out. We can trust in the rising sun. And we can relight the candle again and again and again for as long as it takes. And I think altogether, that's what active hope looks like. Amen. Can we just take a moment?